Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we are going to install the Netlify CLI, which stands for Netlify Command Line Interface. It's a terminal tool that we can use in order to simulate the Netlify environment when it comes to building out our application, which also involves allowing us to build up our Netlify functions so that we can interact with them in a local environment. Similarly, the Netlify CLI is going to take the place of our typical dev server. So that's what makes it really handy because, again, it's simulating our build process for us. So what you can do is cancel your current build server inside of your terminal. And what you're going to do is you are going to run npm install-g. So we're going to globally install onto our terminal or into our computer the Netlify-CLI. So while this is installing, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the CLI enables us to do. Using the CLI, you can essentially control as much of the Netlify platform as you would through the Netlify website UI. The only difference is that with the CLI, you can do it all through the command line. This is useful when you want to run programs that actually perform some of these functions for you. So if you want to programmatically set variables, update different things on the actual website profile that you have, you don't have to go through the interface to do so. You can do it through the CLI if you are a power user like that. CLIs are very useful for that reason, primarily because they give power users the ability to do everything they need to. So here we see that it's done. And in order for us to make sure it works, we just run Netlify in our command line. What we should see is that there is a list of instructions that we now have access to. So the primary one that we want to do is first log in. So if you run Netlify login, this will connect your Netlify CLI to your login instance. So if you hit this, it will prompt you with whether or not you want to open up the browser to a Netlify account. Now, I, of course, am already logged in. So what you can do when it prompts you, say yes, it'll take you to Netlify where you will sign in. And once you've signed in, it'll redirect you. And now your credentials are linked to your Netlify CLI. Once you have the CLI, all you need to run is Netlify dev. And now what will happen is that it will spin up a development server and build our project the way that you typically would inside of Netlify. So whatever it takes for Netlify to spin up your actual website, it's doing the same thing. The other thing that happens is that we are now also running our Netlify function. So what happens with the CLI when it builds is it will go into your Netlify folder inside of your root folder, and it will find a functions folder and build all of those folders as well. So inside of our functions, of course, we have the one file, which is our create payment intent.js. And now this is set up. So what we can do is we can now test it. So inside of our payment form, what we were doing before was we needed a payment intent in order for this to work. So as we know, inside of our create payment intent, it is expecting an amount value. So this is where what we need to do is pass a amount value in as a request to our Netlify function. So as I mentioned, Netlify works with functions as if they are API endpoints. So in order for us to do this, what we're going to say is, okay, let's make the request in order to get this payment intent. So I'm going to say const response is equal to await fetch. Now here you're going to pass it the route relative to your application URL because Netlify will build all of our functions relative to the root. And the way it works is it goes /.netlify/functions, because for us, we're putting it inside of the functions folder, and then / the name of the file. So here it's create payment intent. This is going to be the route. Then we pass the fetch object that is going to define what we're trying to do. So the method here is a post method. So that's what we're saying. The headers is going to be a object where the content type is equal to application/JSON. So here we're saying, hey, I'm going to send you this body in JSON format. And the body is going to be json.stringify. And it's going to be an object where we pass amount. And let's just do 10,000 for now. We'll hook up our actual selector for the actual total, but we'll do that after. Let's just verify everything works. Once this fetch completes, we will say .then, I want the response, and I just want to convert this to JSON before I actually resolve it back to my actual response. I don't want to have to go through that extra step. So I'm just doing my .then here. Once I have this, then I'm just going to console.log the response. And what I want to do as well is I want to take the payment handler and attach it to the onSubmit of the form container. So essentially what we're saying is that whenever this form submits, and remember, any button inside of your form container will automatically be a submission button unless stated otherwise. So for us, that's exactly what we want. So we'll save this and let's go back to our application. And here, because we aren't actually using the card yet, we can just submit the form and we should make a payment intent for that value of 10,000. And here we see we log back our object with the response with the payment intent. This payment intent has a bunch of fields on it, but the main thing that we want is this client secret. This client secret is what attaches an actual payment to the payment intent that was generated from the backend. So remember how I mentioned our backend tells Stripe, hey, this user intends to pay. I'm telling you the value that he intends to pay. So give me back a handshake token, which is essentially this client secret, so that when I actually pass you the payment details with this secret, you know that this payment is connected to that intent to pay. So now that we have this set up, what we need to do is actually build out the rest of this flow. So I want to get off this client secret. So I'm going to say const client secret is equal to response.paymentintent.client secret underscore secret. Now we can do it like this, or we can destructure. You can do payment intent and then client secret like this as well. This will also give us the appropriate client secret value. We can console log the client secret like this, just to make sure that everything is working. Again, some teams enforce that everything is destructured so that you know where everything's coming from. It's a lot clearer. If we hit pay now, there we go. We see our client secret. And now with this client secret, what we're going to do is we are going to create the actual payment. So to do this, we're going to say const payment result is equal to us calling the Stripe instance dot confirm card payment. So confirm card payment is the card payment method, specifically for cards. And here you're going to pass it as the first argument, your client secret. And then the second argument is a configuration object where payment method, so payment underscore method, is going to go to an object. And on this object, we're going to pass the card. So in order to get the card element, we're going to say elements. So this again is the elements instance that we got from useElements dot get element. And what you're going to pass this is the card element. So the reason why this works is because inside of Stripe, you remember in our index.js, what we did is we created this elements wrapper. Inside of here, any element can only exist once. So there's actually a plethora of different elements that we can bring in. We just specifically chose the card element. I'll post a link with the list of the other elements, but here by saying get element and saying the exact specific element, because again, only one instance of it, what Stripe is going to do is actually get off all the appropriate details it needs in order to pass this payment value that gets inserted in as a result. So here we have the card, and then what we're going to say is billing details. Here we're going to say name. We can put whatever we want. We're going to use the current username. But again, we haven't hooked up the user or anything, so I'm just going to say Yihua Zhang as a test. And then as for payment result, what we can do is we can now check. If we get back an error from Stripe, if payment result dot error, then we're just going to alert that error. So we'll say payment result dot error. Otherwise, we were successful. So we'll say if payment result dot payment intent dot status is equal to succeeded. So this, of course, is what we get back from Stripe. We'll say if this is successful, then we will alert payment successful. Either way, we'll get an alert depending on what happens. So now we're going to save this. We're going to go back to our application. We're going to refresh. And now that we are actually expecting to use the credit card, I'm going to go 4242, 4242. Now this is the test credit card. 0424. You can use any date as long as it's in the future. And then as for CVC and zip, they can be whatever you want. Key thing is that as long as this date is ahead of time and then the credit card is 42424242, this only works in test. It's Stripe's test Visa credit card. If we hit pay now, we see there was large secret. We're going to attempt to make a payment. And there we go. We see the payment is successful. And now if we go to our actual Stripe dashboard and we go to developers, what we'll see right there is a payment. So we got a successful call. Additionally, if we actually want to see what happened, you can check payments. Inside of payments here, we'll see that these were all of those incomplete payment intents that we generated. But the successful payment right here was because we successfully charged the card or the test card. So again, as I mentioned, when your backend Netlify function makes a payment intent, this shows up here saying that, oh, somebody is intending to pay, but then the customer did not enter the payment method, meaning they never actually completed the payment with the credit card. And here, this payment complete is actually because we succeeded. But this is it. We've successfully hooked into the full Stripe flow. We learned a lot of things. We definitely learned about Stripe significantly, and we learned a lot about Netlify functions. There was a lot of steps that we had to go through in order to set this up. But when you really think about it and boil it down, it's actually a very simple amount of code. Beyond working with Stripe to make this work and their very key nuances about how you use their Stripe objects, everything else is actually very simple. So that's it. In the next video, what we can do is clean this up a little bit, make it look a little prettier, but we've pretty much written the bulk of the logic that is required in order to make this work. Once we clean up all of our components, then what we can do is deploy this and see it live as well. I'll see you in the next video.